somebody called it yesterday, I think, a BHAG, right? A big, hairy, audacious goal. When I looked at what ours was for the outcome of all forms of negative discrimination in the workplace to be eliminated, boy, that's a BHAG I can get behind. Because I really think there's an opportunity. Some of us were talking earlier today about all the math and the research that talks about how diversity truly drives your bottom line. If you look at any of the math and any of the research, it always says that. So why are we so darn hard-headed about being more inclusive in the workplace when it makes such a business case to do it? So we have our panelists here that are going to talk about their ideas relative to that. So Tim, would you like to go first?
Wow. I sat in a hot spot.
Yes, you did.
Well, good morning. I'm Tim Spearin. Should I stand? It might be easier.
Yes, please.
Okay. I wasn't here yesterday, so I don't know why.
Please.
It's a new day, baby.
Okay. So I have been in learning development my whole entire life. I worked at MBNA Bank for 13 years before it merged with Bank of America and came down here to lead learning and development for the Southern headquarters. I worked then at Consumer Credit Counseling Service, leading learning development and quality assurance, regulatory affairs. For 8 years, we worked at Coca-Cola, leading North America sales, learning and development. And now I'm at Gas South, natural gas marketing company, leading talent development initiatives there. So I have a lot of views and opinions on this. I've always been involved at the companies I've worked for with diversity and inclusion initiatives. And there's a lot of emotion around it. I come from northern New England, so I guess I bring a touch of Yankee realism and pragmatism to my views. I personally do not feel at all that we will ever be able to end any kind of non-negative discriminatory actions, unfortunately, in the workplace, because we're human. I think that we will move closer and closer to unintentional discriminatory acts, but we're human beings. And when you talk about discrimination, you're talking about opinions and emotions and viewpoints, and that's one thing that we celebrate. And so how do you balance, though, differences and honoring individuality, honoring your ways of thinking that truly is inclusive for everyone? I mean, that was the old way that, at least in the U.S., I don't know internationally, but I would assume it's similar, but in America, where we would view it as a regulatory compliance, right, initiative from the 60s. Most companies still today, studies show over 50% just do as bare bones minimum for compliance to that. And was focused on more of the political correctness assimilation kind of method. But today that doesn't work, and I think that scares a lot of people. So when you're thinking about generations and the differences and the gaps that people have from the way that they were raised in society, we're never going to be on the same page. That's just the way that it is. And that breeds, to me, diversity tension, which is something we just have to expect and accept. So for me, I think what we need to do, which I try is to promote, is activities of authenticity and sincerity. I mean, I love Burson by Deloitte, and they did a study not too long ago, about a year and a half or so ago, on diversity, inclusion, benchmarking, and it was very interesting. You know, when you live in a society that is capitalist and wants to make money, we were in this for business, that only 26% of the organizations surveyed felt that they certainly were doing their diversity and inclusion strategies because it was the right thing to do. The overwhelming majority, and 11% of Fortune 500 only said because they believed, the leaders, that it was the right thing to do. The overwhelming majority was because it was a business reason and it would give them more customers, make them more money. So I think that's fine. We're a capitalist society. But when you're dealing with diversity and inclusion, you're dealing with emotion. And it's the way people feel. And that's how I always do what I do, is that we're talking about human beings. We're not numbers. And with that, you have different arrays, right, of personalities and thoughts and viewpoints, ways of making decisions, gathering information in the world, viewing time differently. All of those differences are things to celebrate. But with that comes natural misunderstandings or misperceptions because we're human. So I think what we need to do is really drill down to being accountable, to believing in what we say we're going to do to build diversity and inclusion programs and make it that way by having a lot of programs which I have led. I used to be on the National Coalition Building Institute Board of Directors. It's a leadership nonprofit out of Washington that's international, but works on prejudice reduction programs in the workplace and in communities. People are scared to really talk about in the workplace, tell me how you feel and if you feel discriminated against at all in any way, shape, or form at work. Most leaders I talk to are like, I don't want to go there. So really, how invested are you in having a truly inclusive environment if you can't even talk openly, right, in a safe environment with mature adults around, how do you identify as? How do you feel at work? Have you ever felt excluded? What does that mean? What does that look like to you? Which would be very different from you, from you, from you. So I think that we can get to a place where we're extremely close to protecting and making a safe environment, but I just think human nature is not going to make it easy. It takes a lot of emotional intelligence, a lot of accountability, a lot of emotional maturity, and as we see from the debates and things, it's really hard for people to control their emotions. People have misperceptions, different viewpoints, want to challenge, we have egos. I don't see ever that going away, nor would I want it. So that constant tension is a healthy thing, but you're going to unintentionally have someone offended, you're going to have someone just wanting attention, you're going to have someone who's unstable, you're going to have someone, that just doesn't get it.
When you said that.
No, I didn't. So I thought a lot about this because it's a great goal to have, but in all of my experiences, I just think it isn't human nature to be so aware and to be, unconsciously competent at it. I just don't see that. So I think unintentionally, we'll work towards protecting more legally, but yeah, ideologically, wouldn't it be great if we could get to a place where everybody just naturally does these things? I just think that's dangerous to think that way, because I don't think people can do it. So that's just my viewpoint. I welcome yours, but I guess the question to all of you I had was, is that a bad thing? To say we can't end it, but we can come close. And what does that mean? That's my question.